Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today's breaking story comes from the heart of a region drowning in blood and fire, Gaza. A fragile hope in flames, ceasefire talks rise as Gaza bleeds. A headline that captures both desperation and defiance. A glimmer of diplomacy amid relentless devastation. Let's dive deep into what's really happening behind the scenes, why the ceasefire remains uncertain, and how the world is reacting as Gaza faces one of the darkest chapters in its history. For nearly a year, Gaza has been under siege. A war that began with fierce rocket exchanges has now evolved into a brutal humanitarian catastrophe. Over 30 Palestinians are reported dead, countless more wounded, and entire neighborhoods turned to dust. Hospitals are collapsing under pressure, power is gone, water is scarce, and the United Nations warns that famine looms for hundreds of thousands. Yet amid this chaos, whispers of a ceasefire have begun to circulate again, faint, uncertain, and fragile. Reports suggest that Egyptian and Qatari mediators have reignited back-channel talks between Israel, Hamas, and the United States, trying desperately to prevent the conflict from spiraling further out of control. But as one senior diplomat told Reuters, every time we get close to peace, the bombs start falling again. Inside Cairo, diplomats shuffle between closed-door meetings, juggling impossible demands. Israel insists on the release of all hostages, the complete demilitarization of Hamas, and security guarantees that any truce will not be used for regrouping or rearming. Hamas, on the other hand, demands a permanent ceasefire, withdrawal of Israeli forces, and unrestricted humanitarian access to all of Gaza. The U.S. and European allies are urging a temporary humanitarian pause. A middle ground that allows aid in and civilians out but stops short of a full ceasefire. That phrase, humanitarian pause, has become the political shield for leaders unwilling to say ceasefire outright. Meanwhile, inside Gaza, people aren't talking about negotiations, they're talking about survival. Every minute, families search through rubble, hoping to find loved ones still breathing. Children wander aimlessly in hospital corridors, many of them orphans overnight. Doctors perform surgeries without anesthesia. The sound of drones has replaced the sound of birds, and as journalists on the ground describe it, Gaza has become a graveyard of innocence and hope. Israel, for its part, says it cannot stop now. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose government faces enormous pressure from his far-right coalition, which openly opposes any ceasefire unless Hamas is completely destroyed. But behind the scenes, Israel's own military intelligence warns that continuing the war may not eliminate Hamas. It may only strengthen its narrative and fuel endless resistance. The Israeli public is split. Families of hostages want the government to strike a deal now to bring their loved ones home before it's too late. But many Israelis fear that releasing prisoners or halting operations will only lead to another war down the road. That's the tragedy of this moment. No side trusts the other, and every delay costs lives. In Washington, U.S. officials are under mounting domestic and international pressure. Massive protests have erupted across major American cities from New York to San Francisco, demanding that President Biden push harder for peace. Inside Congress, even members of his own party are beginning to question Washington's unconditional support for Israel. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been on yet another Middle East shuttle mission, trying to keep Egypt, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia aligned. But with every passing week, U.S. credibility in the Arab world continues to crumble. As one analyst put it, America wants peace without pressure, but in the Middle East, peace requires leverage and Washington isn't using any. Back in Gaza, the UN warns of total collapse. Refugee camps are overflowing. Aid convoys wait at border crossings, blocked by political disputes and security checks. Doctors Without Borders say their field hospitals are running out of medicine. Even cemeteries are full. And yet, amidst all this pain, small moments of resilience emerge. Volunteers distributing bread from bombed bakeries, children painting on the walls of destroyed schools, imams and priests praying together for peace. These scenes remind the world that Gaza is not just a battleground. It's a place where humanity refuses to die. The fragile talks in Cairo continue with reports suggesting a phased ceasefire plan on the table. Phase 1, a 7-day truce allowing humanitarian aid and the exchange of women, children, and elderly hostages. Phase 2, Israeli troop withdrawal from northern Gaza, monitored by international observers. Phase 3, political talks aimed at creating a framework for long-term stability, possibly under a joint Palestinian administration supported by Egypt and Qatar. But these are just proposals on paper. On the ground, the bombs are still falling. As one Palestinian negotiator told Al Jazeera, "Every time we hear the word ceasefire, we look up not in hope, but in fear, because that's when the airstrikes come." Meanwhile, Iran and Hezbollah watch closely from the sidelines. Tehran's leadership says the resistance front will not allow Gaza to fall, hinting at potential escalation if Israel launches new offensives. In southern Lebanon, sporadic clashes between Hezbollah and Israeli forces continue, threatening to ignite a regional war that could draw in Syria and even Iraq. The United States has already repositioned naval assets in the eastern Mediterranean, signaling its readiness to deter any regional aggression. But analysts warn one miscalculation, one stray missile could pull the entire Middle East into chaos. For ordinary Gazans, talk of geopolitics means nothing. They want safety, food, dignity, a chance to live without fear. A mother interviewed by Sky News put it simply, "Ceasefire, we've heard that word before. But every time they say it, we bury more of our children." Her words echo through refugee tents and bombed hospitals, a reminder that peace can't just be declared. It has to be protected. As the cameras turn toward Cairo and Washington, many ask, can this ceasefire really hold? The truth is, it depends not only on political will, but on human empathy. If leaders continue to see Gaza as a battlefield instead of a home for millions, the truce will fail before it begins. But if, for once, they choose humanity over revenge, perhaps there's still a spark of hope in the ashes. For now, the world watches and waits. The talks continue, the bombs fall, and the people of Gaza hang on to life by a thread. History has seen this pattern before: destruction, negotiation, betrayal, and renewal. But maybe, just maybe, this time could be different if the world truly decides it's enough. Because at the end of every war, someone has to say stop. Someone has to rebuild. Someone has to believe that peace, however fragile, however faint, is still worth fighting for. This is a fragile hope in flames. Ceasefire talks rise as Gaza bleeds. Stay tuned for updates, and don't forget to share your thoughts below. The world needs voices that care, and every voice for peace matters. Thank you for watching.